Good day, everyone. So, I just want to inform that we are now in chapter 4, lesson 4, which is all about annuities. Okay, so allow me to introduce the topic that we have today, which is all about annuities. But what is an annuity? Okay, so I'll give you insight about annuity. So when we say annuity, it is stated here that it is a series of equal periodic or deposit where the interest on each is compounded. Thus, the compound amount of each payment is computed by using compound interest formula. Okay? So again, when we say annuity po, it talks about the series, okay? Series or the sequence of an equal periodic payment po or deposit. Okay? So for instance, say for example for annuity, say for example after after the birth of a child, so say for example parents decided to to start regular payments to meet for their child's future college expenses. Okay, so for that example there will be a series or a sequence of an equal periodic payment. Okay, also, a company may decide to set aside a certain amount each year for the purchase of new equipment 10 years from the current date. Okay, so this concept, these examples are considered as annuities in which periodic payments are made to meet some future obligation. Okay? So again, let me just repeat that when we say annuities, these are essentially a series of fixed payments required from you or paid to you at a specified frequency over a course or over the course of a fixed time period. Okay, so the payment frequencies, okay, can be yearly. Okay, the frequency of conversion can be yearly, semi-annually, quarterly, and monthly. Okay, so that is for the concept of annuity. And it's stated here that annuities may also be used, to discharge liabilities. Okay, say for example, you have a newly married couple. Okay, and that newly married couple may apply for a loan of a house and lot, and pay the amount through installment. Okay, so for this example it talks about the liabilities. Okay, where in this process is what we call amortization. Okay po, so for the next topic we will talk about amortization. Okay, but that's the concept of annuity. So stated here also that the amount of the annuity is actually the sum, okay, the sum of the compound amount of each payment. So in addition, the time between each payment, okay, we are referring to the time between each payment. That is what we call the payment interval. Okay, so I want you to be familiarized with that terms. While the time for the beginning, because we will be having beginning term here and for the last term here, right? For the beginning date and for the last date, you have, say for example, that you have an annuity there, then that must be considered as term of the annuity. Okay. In addition, that annuities are classified in this following ways po. Number one, by correspondence with the interest periods. Okay, so through interest periods. Number two is through the term. Number three is about the date of payment. Okay, and with these three classifications, you have to consider things. Okay, and for the interest periods, you have to consider simple annuity. You will be having simple annuity there for interest periods, and also general annuity. Okay, and for by term through term, you have to consider three things. What are those? The annuity certain, the perpetuity, and also the contingent annuity. Okay, and for the date of payment, you have to consider three things also. That is for the ordinary annuity, annuity due, and for the deferred annuity. So we will focus on the topic that we have today for the date of payment po, particularly in this lesson, which is ordinary annuity. And for the next lessons we will talk about the annuity due and deferred annuity. Okay, but for this session, we will talk about ordinary annuity only. Okay, but what would be the significant difference between these classifications of annuities? Okay, so let us define or let us differentiate. Okay? So let's proceed here muna po sa ating first classification po. in terms of interest periods, which is simple annuity and general annuity. So what will be the difference between the two, between these two? Okay, what will be the significant difference between these two? So when we say simple annuity, you have to consider two things or two variables, and that is the payment interval and the interest conversion period. So ano po ba yung mga interest conversion period? So ba, it can be monthly, it can be quarterly, it depends for how many periods you have in a year. Okay, so say for example that you have there the payment interval, okay, and say for example that that is actually equal to the conversion or for the interest conversion period you have, then that must be considered as simple annuity. Okay, so if the payment interval coincides with the interest conversion period, then that's simple annuity. While on the other hand, when you say general annuity, it's an annuity wherein yung payment nyo naman po, your payment interval does not coincide. Okay? So it's not equal to the interest conversion period. Okay? So I guess nakuha po yung concept for the simple annuity and general annuity. So let me just repeat. When you say simple annuity, your payment interval coincides with the interest conversion period you have. While general annuity, your payment interval does not coincide. Okay? It's not equal to the interest conversion. Okay? For the second classification, that will be by term. So you have to consider three things there, right? As what I stated to you earlier. And that is for annuity certain, perpetuity, and contingent annuity. So what will be the difference? Okay? Sa tatlong ito. So when we say annuity certain, so it's an annuity wherein you have a definite beginning date po. Beginning date and an ending date. Okay? So if you have a beginning date and an ending date, then that must be considered as an annuity certain. Okay? For instance, say for example, on Marine's grade school graduation, um, Mr. Billiam Moore enrolled her in the college educational plan. So we're talking about college educational plan here, or CEP. He pays 2,100, say for example 2,100 at the end of each 3 months for 5 years. So that's the concept. So in turn, the CEP, or the college educational plan, deposits the payment in a bank which pays at 15% compounded quarterly. Okay, for this example, you have here a definite beginning date and an ending date. So for this example, this must be considered as an annuity certain. While when we say perpetuity, again, opposed with this for the first type of or classification annuity we have here, okay, opposite of that. So you have there also definite beginning date, but there's no ending date po. When we say perpetuity, so it continuous, okay? Okay po ba? So when we say perpetuity, it's an annuity with a definite beginning date but no ending date. For instance, I'll give you an example. Say for example, you um, you donated 1 million. Okay, say for example 1 million to a secondary school scholarship fund. Okay, so if the donation is invested in a bank which pays interest monthly, say for example, and the recipient of the scholarship is to receive a regular monthly allowance of lesser amount, say for example, then it is very possible that only the monthly interest on this donation will be used, isn't it? Therefore, thus we should say that the scholarship continues indefinitely, isn't it? So for this example, you have a definite beginning date there, but you don't have ending date. So that must be considered as perpetuity. Okay? So I guess nakuha po. And when we say contingent annuity naman po, this is very simple. When we say contingent annuity, it's an annuity with no fixed terms. Okay? So there's no beginning date, there's no ending date. Okay? So an example, so a typical example for contingent annuities is the death insurance plan, isn't it? Very obvious, right? So kailan po ba mahihinto ang payment of the insurance premium? Of course, pag namatay na yung naguhulog, isn't it? So we should say that the payment of insurance premium ends exactly on the date of the person's death. Okay, hence we should say that the term of this annuity is not fixed. Okay, so again, when we say contingent annuity, it's an annuity with no fixed terms po. Okay, and for the third one, that is through the date of payment. So what will be the difference, okay po, among the three? The ordinary annuity, the annuity due, and the deferred annuity. So when we say ordinary annuity, yeah, it's an annuity wherein yung payments mo naman po are made at the end of each payment interval. Okay? So your payments are made at the end, while sa annuity due naman po, okay, at the beginning naman po. Say for example, for ordinary annuity, the monthly electric bills, isn't it? So for that example, di ba, we actually pay that um, at the end of the payment interval, isn't it? While annuity due, it's at the beginning of each payment interval. Say, for example, the insurance payments, right? The health care premiums, isn't it? So you have to pay that at the beginning of each payment interval. So that must be considered as annuity due. While when you say deferred annuity, ito naman po, yung payments naman po dito are made at the end of payment interval. Okay, so same sa annuity due, but then there's a condition na you have to, you have to pay that at the you have a first payment made on a later date po. Okay, for instance, say for example, um, the monthly car plans wherein the first payment is made after 6 months, isn't it? Okay, so you can actually pay that at the end of the payment interval, but then there are always a first payment made on the later date, which is yung after 6 months, isn't it? Or or say for example the quarterly house and lot installments, isn't it? With the first payment made after 2 years, say for example. So that must be considered as deferred annuity. Okay? So I guess nakuha po yung mga pagkakaiba po ng mga classification of annuity. Okay? So again, when we say annuity, it's a series of payment. Okay? It's a series of payment or equal periodic payments po or deposits. Okay? And that will be the classification of annuities. Okay, so let us talk about ordinary annuity. Okay? So how are we going to compute ordinary annuity? Okay? So dito lang po muna tayo sa ordinary annuity in terms of date of payment po. So for the ordinary annuity, so let me just repeat that when we say ordinary annuity, as stated here, it refers to the sequence of periodic payments which are thought of as occurring at the end. Okay, at the ends of corresponding payment intervals. Okay, so at the end po siya, when I say ordinary, at the end of each payment interval. So let me just go forward po. We have here the given formulas. Okay po, for the final amount. Say for example, you are looking for the final amount. So this is something like this slide po is actually pertaining to the concept of compound interest. Okay, so if we are now talking about ordinary annuity, so your S here will be now served as your final amount. Okay, so take note of that. So we're not talking about compound interest here anymore. So we are actually talking about ordinary annuity, wherein your S as your variable will be served as the final amount, and your A here is what we call the present value. Okay, so same scenario lang po. Variables lang po ang naiba, wherein your I is actually equal to the rate of interest or the nominal rate of interest all over the frequency of conversion you have. And your N is as is po, you have to multiply the frequency of conversion times the time you have. Okay? And through this concept po, okay, concept of compound interest po, we could actually come up with this idea, okay, wherein if you're looking for the present value of an ordinary annuity, then we will come up with this formula wherein that is equal to A equals R, quantity 1 minus 1 plus I raised to negative N all over I, wherein um, itong A po natin, okay, that will be served as the present value po. Okay, so I want you to take down note the formula po for the present value. On the other hand, if we are actually looking for the amount of an ordinary annuity naman po, here's the formula po. So to find the amount of an ordinary annuity, we use this formula wherein S equals R times 1 plus I raised to N minus 1 all over I. So what will be the difference? Okay, for the amount of an ordinary and for the present value. Okay? So yung 1 plus I raised to N nyo po ay nasa unahan po. Okay? For the amount of an ordinary annuity, while the present value is nasa pangalawa po siya. Okay? So I want you to take down note of that. Okay, so say for example that you are actually finding for the periodic payment. Okay, when you say periodic payment, ito po yung binabayad nyo every, every payment interval po. So for example, every month and so on and so forth. How to find that? Okay, so we have here the given formula. Say for example, you have the given I sub I. Your I will be the present value. So you just need to follow this formula. While if you have the given naman po for the amount of an ordinary annuity, okay po, you have to use this formula, okay, for periodic payment. Okay? So for the this one, for the formulas, as you can see here, nabaligtad lang po yung denominate, yung dito po, expression po natin dito sa denominator. Okay? This is for the present and this is for the amount of an ordinary annuity. Okay? So since you know now the formulas, so let's have now an example. Okay? Example one, let me read this one to you. Mr. Gosson's monthly insurance premium is 500. Okay? So as you can see here, we have your monthly insurance premium. So dito pa lang po, we can now actually consider this example as an annuity, isn't it? Payable at the end of each month. Okay, so his policy matures 20 years later, which he can withdraw all his payments plus the interest earned. So if money is worth 15% compounded monthly, how much does he expect to withdraw on the maturity of his policy? So for this example, we are actually looking for the maturity value. Okay? So for us to solve this one, of course, we have to identify muna po yung mga given information for step 1. Okay? So let's identify. Your R here will be served as the periodic payment po, which is 500 po, right? And for your M, how do we come up with M here? Your 12. So we're talking about monthly, compounded monthly, therefore 12 po siya. And for the nominal rate of interest you have, that will be 15% and should be converted into 15. 0.15, isn't it? So that's why we have our 0.15 for the rate for the normal rate of interest. Okay. And since your I is actually equal to R over M, take note of that, R over M, okay? And we have here R, which is 0.15, so you just need to plug in your numerator, so that will be 0.15 divided by your 12. Your 12 po is your denominator since that is M po, okay? So if you're going to divide that one, 0.15 divided by 12, you will come up with 0.0125, okay? And for your T, how do you come up with 20 years? Because it's stated here in the given that his policy matures 20 years later. Okay, so that's why we have here the time, which is 20. And for your N, since N is equal to M times T, you just need to substitute only the value of your N and T. So your M will be 12 times T, that is 15% or 0.15 if we're going to, no. Time is 20 years, right? So you'll have here 12 times 20, so that will be 240 for N. Okay, so using the formula, you can now actually substitute that one. You can now actually find the accumulated amount S. So we have to use this formula because we are actually looking for the maturity value. Okay, that will be S equal R quantity 1 plus I raised to N minus 1 all over I. So let's just only substitute the given information. Okay, so your S is unknown, your R is 500, substitute only, your 1, copy lang po. Your I, as what we computed, that is 0.0125 raised to 240 because your N is 240 minus 1 divided by 0.0125. And if you're going to input this one in your calculator, all the given data po here, okay? So pwede nyo na po yan i-direct or pwede pong isa-isahin nyo 1 plus 0.0125 raised to 240 tas i-minus sa 1. After that, divide nyo po sa 0.0125 then multiply into 500. So if that's so, the result will be 748,619.74. Okay? Thus, we should say that the maturity, okay, the maturity value po na ine-expect na po to withdraw will be 748,619.74 at the end po of 20 years. Okay? So that's how are we going to solve ordinary annuity po. Okay? So I guess this is only for today and I hope you've learned something new. Okay, so for the next session po, we will talk about the deferred, okay po, and the annuity due naman po. Okay, so for this session lang, we will talk about the ordinary annuity lang po. Okay? So thank you for listening everyone. I hope you've learned something.